talk a little bit about seeds. So this has been an ongoing discussion. I ran into the question of what is native when I was in Florida, and we were replanting palm trees, and I find out that palm trees aren't native to Florida. They came in on the shipwrecks that happened with coconuts that from Africa that came into Florida, and so we're planting these native palm trees that I find out aren't native, and so it brings me into the ginseng discussion of seeds. What is native to North Carolina as far as seeds, or what is native to any of the states as far as seeds? And we went ahead and asked a gentleman named Jim Hamilton, an ag extension person up in Boone, who has a project creating farmers to do seeds. And with the hopeful understanding that we will have a North Carolina ginseng seed production operation here. Now, we had a bunch of questions that we threw out. Because of the holiday weekend, he is not able to be here. But he sent an email, and we have put this into the packet so you can follow along. And we asked these questions, and thank you so much to Jessica for helping put this whole scene together, as well as this document. Without her, it would have been really difficult. So the first question is, how can our organization support a local ginseng seed dealer in Western North Carolina? Now, without knowing totally what Jim Hamilton's program was, I asked that question. And so the answer coming back is that there is an effort right now underway to produce farmers who are going to be growing seed. The situation that's not on this piece of paper, which came about through the telephone call I had with him, was that all of the seed that he brought in is from Arkansas, from the Ozarks, Ozark ginseng. So it's not North Carolina kind of to start in there. The other aspect of it is all of the dealers that I know of that are selling seed are selling like seed from Canada is one of our big ginseng people in the state, and one of the bigger seed production people down near Cullowhee. He also does stuff outside the state. We have had in Yancey County, when I first came in '94, we had a seed dealer, and he got robbed and decided to change locations. So with his departure, I went through a number of people who were outside the state to bring that kind of seed into the state. I personally am thrilled that Jim Hamilton is going to have a number of ginseng farmers who are going to grow seed. It really is a major accomplishment for the state. But as he indicates, it's going to take a while to do that. They're just starting. Now, he just got a Carolina Farm Stewardship Association award this last weekend for the work that he's doing creating this situation with ginseng coming back. And it's heartening to me that Carolina Farm Stewardship gave an award to the medicinal side of the coin for that's been under the carpet for a long time now. So let me ask you, Gary, how are you, because I mean, remember way back when you and I had a conversation about seeds and why the Forest Service wasn't handing out seedlings, and part of it, if I remember right, was the fact that we did not have North Carolina seeds to make into seedlings to hand out.
Right, and what we're concerned about is actually what you brought up, the Arkansas seed, or we don't really know where the provenance of most of our populations. So what we're trying to create a seed bank within the National Forest in North Carolina, the Nantahala Pisgah. Well, it's going to take a long time, and we have collected seed in different places. Some of the stuff we've gotten seized, stuff that was seized by Jim Corbin for. But we've actually done genetic testing on it. So we're trying to determine, based on some prior work that was, there's a lot of work that has been done through the years that shows there's a difference in ginseng. It's all one species, but there is a difference across its entire range. The range goes all the way into Canada and over to Wisconsin and down to Arkansas. I'll show you a map later on. Even back in the 1930s, A.R. Harding, who did some of the pioneering work with ginseng, he recognized 3 strains. So, what we want to do is grow or be propagating North Carolina ginseng that should, in and of itself, be able to withstand, climatic change and other things, be able to do much better. And even some of the dealers across the states see differences based on growing conditions in what everything looks like. So North Carolina has a lot of premium of ginseng, and in some of our populations, even in remote locations, that we have seen collections people have planted. Even here in Madison County, the Extension Service used to give seed to all the ginseng dealers, ginseng collectors, and they would go plant it. So a lot of the seed came from Wisconsin for the most part, because it was cheaper. It makes sense to get that seed. So it's just going to be a long-term project to try to get the seed. And I think that's where the Forest Service is doing some stuff, and we're trying to propagate. And ultimately, this is for us to populate areas on the forest. But also, I think it could be an entrepreneur. Some of that germplasm could be used by other entrepreneurs, because it doesn't have to be just the federal government.
Yes, and we would encourage that. Two points. Number one, he mentioned Mr. Harding. Mr. Harding was up in New York. Most people after him who started growing ginseng had New York ginseng. So a lot of the ginseng that is here has been crossed with New York ginseng. Now, some of the ginseng that's in the national forest probably hasn't. But on private lands, you've got to believe that there's going to be some kind of crossing with the amount of seeds that first came out of New York and then eventually came out of Wisconsin. It's interesting because with the plant, most of or almost everything I know that is out there available is from people who cultivate, who spray. So the question that one would seem obvious to me to do a research project on would be having Wisconsin ginseng, spray ginseng, coming up and not getting the spray that it's anticipating, and then having organic ginseng from seed also coming up, and then also not getting any spray, and seeing what kind of percentage of ratio that the organic, I believe, seed or seed not sprayed would have a better chance of protecting itself from the fungus than the seed that has been gotten information that somebody's going to spray it. If that's a real aspect of the understanding of where the seeds come from and everything, I think then it becomes really important to understand how we need to have some kind of seed that's organic, that hasn't been sprayed, that can sustain itself out in a forest without having to come in and do some spraying of fungicidal poisons. So I'm obviously, and spoke at the conference in West Virginia about having natural funguses that don't leave any residues and are totally biodegradable, that are out there that we can use. But it's very interesting because this organization, hopefully, at the time when Jim Hamilton will have his farmers growing their seeds, that's when we're going to need the seeds to start as this organization gets bigger and bigger, because it becomes a problem of where to get all the seed for an organization if everybody's buying into it as like a little co-op. So that's going to be important if we can get Boone seed or ginseng seed from Boone area to come down here. I think would be a tremendous
Well,
boost
one of
for
the problems is it takes like 5 to 7 years before you start producing seed. If
Exactly.
you're putting seed in the ground, so you have a long lag time.
Right. Okay. Anybody else have input?
Go ahead, Sean.
Sean.
So we purchased 19 pounds of seed from Jim, and my understanding is it is being produced in high country ginseng, and that seed originated from persons in Tuckasegee, not Arkansas. I may be mistaken, but what Jim told me was that Travis's original seed source was Tuckasegee.
Scott told me that he did not know the provenance of the seed he had.
That's true,
So-
but it had been grown in North Carolina for quite a few generations. I mean, that's one of the issues where we need to really find out, is that how many generations of seed production does it require to
I mean,
produce
that's
North
a good
Carolina?
question.
We're doing genetic analysis at Warren Wilson of our ginseng now, and to find out what the origination of the province we have of our own, of plants that have been there present for a long time. I think we're going to find out that, contrary to what you're saying, Robert, we'll find that on our national forest we have ginseng that has origination from Wisconsin, if not New York, because this
Well, we
has
do,
occurred
yeah.
since the late 1800s to the early 1900s,
Right.
before the national forests were established, and after the national forests were established, for ginseng growers to replant seed after they harvest, and the seed that they're replanting hasn't been North Carolina seed for more than a century. The seed that they've been planting as they harvest ginseng, the seed they purchased from up north. So the whole idea of what is North Carolina province, and do we even have such a thing, and how many generations does it require to produce North Carolina province? How much of that has been inbred with northern ginseng over 150 years
Right.
is something we're going to take a long time to tease out.
Right.
It's a
Right.
good question, but
It
you should
is.
also recognize that massive seed production has not come out of Wisconsin for that long of time, not 100 years. It's more like 50 to 70 years.
Yeah.
So,
Before that, New York then, I mean, the point is that, you know, you could get you could purchase seed in Sears and Roebuck catalog in the late 1800s, and it wasn't coming from North Carolina, and North Carolina harvesters were buying that seed. So the genetics of ginseng is.
Right.
and it's important to realize, you're looking at, there's been a lot of genetics work done with ginseng, and there's a lot of strains out there that you can look at with some of the John Young's work.
And there's a lot presented at the symposium on this topic, so there's some really great papers. But I think, you know, in regards, I mean, there's been further research, but yes, you're right, it's been proven. And one issue, anyways, I'm very curious to connect with you on the lab and who's doing the work, because what happened was, I can't remember his name, but the man who was in charge of the lab at USGS passed away. So there's a huge backlog in all of this research and getting this information out there, and also building on it, like you said, taking these samples and building on it.
And Jennifer Cruz Sanders did quite a bit of work with her PhD, where she looked at, you know, you have to look at ginseng. It's important to maintain the diversity between populations. So, I mean, in some regards, you can increase the diversity by bringing in some other seed. It's a complex issue. We just don't. I think the most important issue is not to swamp all the local stuff we have. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Right, I would echo that, and then I would also echo any effort to increase local seed sourcing and production in this region across the range is an important step.
And just to clarify, I completely agree. I'm not
No,
saying
totally,
that
you're
it
just bringing
doesn't
up
matter. I just think that North Carolina ginseng genetically is something that we may not truly have. That's my only, I do believe that we should prevent the swamping of local genetics within all of our ginseng populations across all of its range. We see that's been growing monoculturally, you know, under shade cloth, but that's not, I don't disagree with that. I just think that what is North Carolina ginseng or Tennessee ginseng or West Virginia ginseng it's probably more of a mutt than we understand.
Yeah, just like there's no, how many people are actually from Western North Carolina?
But I will say this, one thing that is exciting when you look at that research, and not teasing out those components, but especially with Marla McIntosh's work, I mean, she basically demonstrated within this strain that Harding has that has been proven to be regionally significant to Western Maryland, and it has interesting gisenoside content and profile. So, you know, with the further expansion of our knowledge and ability to understand this, I mean, we may see, you know, gisenoside profiles that, you know, might be of value for certain medicines, you know, looking ahead. So there's that element as well, which is.
And the people at UNCA Asheville here are
Right.
specifically doing some work with ginsengicides.
Yeah, and they presented some of their papers in Nature. So it's an
Right.
exciting time, I think.
Okay, John.
I just had a quick question, a little bit off topic, I guess, but what thought has gone into climate change and the future of ginseng? Is it gonna move up the slopes? You know?
Well, I think it's a good question, you know. It's something we're supposed to be dealing with the forest plan.
Okay.
But more, you know, climate change, probably what will happen, the ginseng, the favored habitat is more in coves where it's more mesic hardwoods. So probably it will be a restriction of the mesic hardwoods as it gets drier. But the models are all over the board
Yeah.
that you don't totally know. In some areas you might have wetter habitat, some drier. Last year was historically dry in Western North Carolina. We had all the fires.
Right.
This year has been more normal. But I think we're trending toward drier and
And that would be
higher
harder-
temperature.
Harder on ginseng.
It would be harder on ginseng. What we're tending to do is getting rains, significant rains where they're more intense. So I would say it's not really good for ginseng. It might be good for grassy balls.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to know what the genetic differences were. You previously noted that there were 3 variations. So what are the differences in those variations?
Well, what he presented back in the early in the 1930s saw a difference in seed production.
Mm-hmm.
The northern populations, I think, had fewer bare seed, where in a pound of seed it was more closer to 7,000 to 8,000 seed, whereas in southern it was 10,000 to 11,000.
Mm-hmm.
The plants had a longer neck.
Mm-hmm.
There was just difference in appearance of the individual roots.
So does anyone ever use rooting hormone on this plant?
Some people do when they're growing it, yeah.
And do you know what's?
I mean, I know some people who does it, you know, when you, with seized roots, we have done that occasionally just to try to maintain the population. See if we can get them going. If you can seize the roots and have it relatively fresh within 5 to 6 days, they usually you'll get 80% survival rate.
So you'll replant it?
Right.
And you'll use a rooting hormone bed?
Right.
So
I have not done it, but I know some other people who
Okay,
have. Yeah.
so what ones did they use? Do you know?
I would have to talk to the person.
And how do you access that USDA information that you're talking about, difference in genetics?
Oh, well, just download the symposium proceedings and
Okay.
the papers are all in there. I'm spacing out his name, but
John Young?
John Young. John Young was at the symposium, he presented that work, and it was funding through USGS, and then in addition, NatureServe presented, and they've done additional genetics, like, genetics work, and their paper is, in the proceedings as well. And then Marla McIntosh is on, if you go to United Plant Savers, we have a page on ginseng, with a lot of interesting research, and Marla McIntosh's research is, available on that page, so.
And Jennifer Cruz Sanders has done some stuff, but
Yeah.
that was almost 10, 13 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll let you know when we find out. I'm
I
really
know.
curious because
Yeah.
we're sampling our native populations, and we're also just finished sampling our leaves from Jim Hamilton, so
Right,
we'll let
yeah.
you know
Cool.
what we find. as a
Super.
comparison.
I'd like to collaborate with you,
Uh-huh.
if possible.
Yeah,
Dr. Lisa Hove, I'll connect you to.
yeah.
Great. Yes. Okay. We're coming close to time, I think.
I had another.
206.
You have a question?
Is the main reason that, one of the main reasons besides keeping it local that we want a North Carolina seed is because we want one that's resistant to mold? Is it because North Carolinians were not organized and that's why they didn't have a good production? Or is it because it's not a great seed producing area because we're a little bit more susceptible to mold? What are the reasons that North Carolina?
No, I think it just started, it really started for George Stanton back in New York in the late 1880s because he recognized, the industry recognized that ginseng was declining even then. So someone started propagating it.
So it's not because we have an environment that's not as friendly for seed production?
No.
Not at all. Okay, we're getting close to our time frame here. We're going to move on to our break, which is being looked forward to. There is one thing I wanted to touch base on here more than anything else, which was the fact that I wanted most people to know that their ginseng seeds, their stratified ginseng seeds, usually go through a 10% solution of bleach, just to keep the fungus from not being on the seed. Whether that is the best situation, I think really needs to be researched. So we can find that out. Yes, John?
You mentioned bleach, but I'm wondering if anybody is working with any of the newer biofungicides like Serenade or double nickel product from
Yeah.
Service.
There's not as much research done right now in that area. I have not seen anything come across my desk that indicates that there's some new ways of doing this seed wash, bleached. And there's a couple of times when they can do that, and sometimes they do it a couple of times. So when they first pull them out of the stratification box, there's one time that they could be bleached, but after they get the sand out of them, they could run it through again before they sell them.
What's your concern, that it's not working, or you think there's something that's?
Somebody picked 10% out of their blue. I can't figure out who did it and why they picked 10%
Well, the 10%
versus.
is the standard with the plant pathologists. That's what's used on all of our seeds, as we do on all our vegetable seeds.
Yeah, but how'd they come with that?
Um,
That's what I was trying to say. Maybe it should be 30%, or maybe it should be only 2%. I don't think the research has really been done on.
we'd have to look a long, long time ago
Go.
that they came up with that percentage.
Yeah.
But I've talked to our pathologists about, how good is that? We're actually wiping everything off of that seed. Should we then re-inoculate with something? But their basic take on it is it's right now probably the least damaging thing to do,
Yeah.
except for then disposing of the rinse water has been their concern. And, it is certified organic, allows it, so.
Yeah. Yeah, my question would be, maybe 5% would be just as good as the 10%. But I haven't seen.
I will look to see if we can find the research, but I bet you
Yeah.
it goes way, way back.
Yeah.
I'll look for it.
Yes, John?
The reason I asked about the biofungicides is because in the ideal world, with bacteria, that they are colonizes the seed or the soil or whatever, and so you get a continued protective effect in the ideal world. I don't know how often we all experience the ideal world, but it sounds like a good thing to try.
Yeah, I don't think that I've seen research. There's a lot of people doing a lot of research, but I haven't seen anything on this recently. And so I just thought that this would be a good topic for this organization to at least breach what needs to be looked at when you purchase seeds, and how this organization in the future will buy seeds for its members. That was the main reason to do this this little workshop talk. Okay.